Welcome to another edition of Points of Interest, brought to you by the Lebanon Area Chamber of Commerce. My name is Paul Boucher. I'm the President and CEO of the Lebanon Area Chamber of Commerce. And each week we bring you a program of the activities going on during the week and have a special guest to talk about a particular topic. Being no different this week, we have Mike Cryans, who is County Commissioner for Grafton County. And we'll be talking about a follow-up program that we did a couple of weeks ago with Mike. But with the activities going on this week, we have on Wednesday, White Christmas is being played at the Nugget. And people remember that program with Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney and all of that. That is Wednesday, 1:30 p.m., special showing. And the price is right, $7.75 to come in. So that is on Wednesday. Ongoing, because we are in the middle of the holiday season, we have the Upper Valley Crafters in Enfield, and their hours are Wednesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday 4 p.m., noon to 4 p.m. They're located on 495 Route 4 in Enfield. Then, of course, we have the illuminations at Enfield Last Select Shrine. They will be running until New Year's night. And in addition to the lights, they have a whole building with nativity scenes, over 400 nativity scenes from all over the world, and they're great. They're really some beautiful pieces there. So that's an add-on this year at the shrine. Lights go on 5 to 9 p.m. at the shrine. Playing all week, we have Mary Poppins in White River. They're playing at the Barrett Center for the Arts. 2 p.m. programs and 7:30 p.m. programs all week this week. And that is at the Barrett Center for the Arts, which is the old Miller Auto building, if you remember that, in White River. They've done a beautiful job there with the new theater that's there. It's there in the round like it was in the hotel upstairs, and they've done a great job. Very, very nice venue. We have at Lebanon Opera House coming up on January 7th, we have Jim Brewer, and he's an actor, author, and comedian, and he will perform a benefit for the Upper Valley Haven, and this is on Thursday, January 7th at 7:30 p.m. And some good news to report is that the Department of Resources and Economic Development, particularly the Travel and Tourism Department, has decided to reopen our rest area here that has been closed since Labor Day. 2 years ago, due to budgetary cuts, the rest area was closed on Labor Day and reopened on Memorial Day. The state, in their infinite wisdom, found some money to reopen for a while. They opened this past Thursday and will be open till the end of March, and Thursday through Sunday, which is the high traffic times, and hopefully it'll catch on. They will close at the end of March and then reopen again for Memorial Day. So we have at least our rest area, Littleton, and Colebrook are the three that they're reopening on a trial basis and see how that works. There's plenty of information there too, and it's not just for tourists, and I say that about our information booth that the Chamber runs in the summertime. We open Memorial Day through Columbus Day, and we have information. If you're going elsewhere, you're not necessarily in the area, you can pick up pamphlets if you want to go to the mountains, to the ocean, different venues that you're interested in. All kinds of information at the rest area there, and as we do when we are open here at our information booth. We have Ava Gallery is again this year doing their fall and winter classes, their art classes, workshops. They're for children, teens, and adults. And you can get more information by calling 448-3117. And they got 28 adult classes, 15 children's and teens, and 32 regional artists will be leading these sessions. So things to do in the cold winter nights in the Upper Valley. So some of those activities going on in the Upper Valley this week. And of course, we always encourage shop local, as we have in the past years, and hope that you avail yourselves of the products and things that our local merchants have for this holiday season. So Michael, welcome to our program again. Mike has been a frequent visitor to us. And as a follow-up, 2 weeks ago, our program, we had Steve St. Louis, who is a lieutenant on the Lebanon Police Department, and we talked about the drug issue, how it affects Lebanon and that type of thing. And we talked a lot, too, about the trickle down of the drug issue, not just the drug issues, but people who are addicted, who either show up late for work, high absenteeism, and really filters down into the business community for providing a good employee to the employer. So we talked a little bit about that and the issues. And today Mike is going to talk to us about the drug court that's been established and give us a little information when you started the drug court.
Well, first of all, welcome to listeners to have an opportunity to speak about the, as it's often referred to as the heroin epidemic, even though fentanyl now is playing such a huge role in the deaths that take place in the state. Before I get there, I start down a different venue, say congratulations. I heard you're stepping down in June.
Well, thank you.
I was surprised to hear that. You've been an institution here for almost 20 years doing this job, and you've done a great job, Paul,
Well, thank you.
You'll be missed. You've been a wonderful public servant, not only in your role here at the chamber, but all the volunteer boards that you've served on, whether it's over at APD or the old college, Lebanon College, and so many others that you've played that role as a volunteer board member.
Thank you.
So, the drug court. First of all, I was fortunate enough to be asked recently to go along with the president of our New Hampshire Association of Counties, George McGlaris from Stratford County. He and I went and spoke before the Drug Task Force regarding this whole heroin epidemic, and it's been established to come up with some recommendations to help stem this out-of-control problem. Last year we had 320 people die from overdoses related to heroin or other opioids. This year it looks like it'll be 400. It's one a day. As I mentioned at my presentation, I said, I'm driving down, which I very seldom do, turn right when you get onto 93 and head towards Manchester after you've got to Concord. And there's a sign down there that's one of those signs that changes, that flashes on the highway and said, we have 98 highway deaths in New Hampshire. Well, if they'd done the same one at that time, it would have been about 300 heroin/fentanyl deaths. It's a huge, huge problem. To take it one step further, if you took the problem that New Hampshire is dealing with right now and multiplied it by, because we're roughly 1/300th of the size of the country, we're looking at over 100,000 deaths if you did it on across this whole country. When you start thinking that, that's huge. I mean, they're talking about possibly 35,000 gun-related deaths in the country, usually something in that range for traffic deaths, but to have 100,000 if it played out across the country. Fortunately, it is not as severe as we're having it, because this is one of those rankings that you wish you were not near the top, but New Hampshire per capita is way up there for the number of deaths that are taking place. Before we get to the specifics about drug court, I think this is a multi-prong approach to deal with this. I was asked to, I did it on my own, but I wrote a letter to the editor several months back and said, first of all, we are not going to be able to jail and arrest our way out of this problem. There are a number of things that are going to have to be done. Obviously, education and awareness is one. So I think just being on this hopefully will heighten the awareness. If you know somebody that's dealing with a problem, reach out to them. Tell them there are places that they can go. As you know, I used to run Headrest. Headrest is one of those providers, but there's a lot of other providers throughout New Hampshire that deal with this program that they can help you. And treatment is so essential. If you've got the problem, you've got to get treatment. In addition to that, the use of Narcan, which is used to take someone back from basically close to death. They can come back. Almost 3,000 dosages have been administered in the first 11 months of this year. Now, not all of them would have died, and not all of them are just 33,000 separate individual cases. Some have had it administered numerous times, but it would certainly heighten the number of deaths in the state. So awareness, prevention, hopefully we will do more in the schools to start kids at a very young age to realize how severe this specific one can be, because unlike other drug epidemics in the past, I think this is killing people faster. Sometimes with the fentanyl, it's killing them on the first go around. They're just trying it, and it's across the board. I think a lot of times people think this is, when you mention heroin, this is sort of the old, well, you and I are old enough to realize they used to display it on TV, sort of a skid row. These are young people, many of them involved in school activities that are dying. These are people that are working out in our businesses that are dying. These are young and old. Many of them have become addicted to prescription drugs, and this is a cheaper form to continue that because of that addiction. And I know the medical community wants to correct and be more upfront and help create this sort of buffer so that we have fewer people going down that road. But there's a lot of things that will have to take place. I think it's so bad, and I hate to say this, but I think what we've got to do is sort of stem the tide on this and start turning it, because a number of years ago it was 50 people, and then it was a couple of hundred, and then last year it was 320. This year it's going to be 400. What we can have next year is 500 or 600.
Yes.
And we can't have it keep on growing because I'll give you a quick example before I talk about the drug court. I learned one day how pervasive this is. I had written a letter on basically appealing to the state senators to not cut senior services. It had been cut at the House, and to restore those cuts. And this lady called, and she said that she wanted to thank me for writing this letter. She was from Laconia. She identified herself as a 75-year-old woman. And we were chatting, going back and forth, and I apologized at some point. I said, I've got to go to a drug court meeting that we have, and it starts in about an hour, and I'm an hour away. And she said, oh, speaking of drugs, the boy across the street overdosed on heroin, 17 years old. And I'm thinking, this lady called me on something nothing to do with drugs, and just, oh, by the way, because I linked the drug court to this, she brought this up. Yeah. So, I mean, I realized at that moment that it's amazing how you mention it to somebody, oh, did you know so-and-so, or I know so-and-so that their child died, or the person died. Sometimes you look in the obituaries and you realize that probably the likelihood of, if they're young, but sometimes they don't have to be even young. I mean, but a lot of times you see that it just doesn't look like a normal, why did that person die? And so you have a lot of that.
I'm glad you mentioned the medical area, because at the annual meeting of the overseers at Hitchcock this year, there was a big impetus there to try to limit the drugs being prescribed if it's really not necessary, and so they're taking the lead and starting with that too.
And I
then,
think if you were at the APD one,
and the APD,
and I asked the question to Sue Mooney, who's the president, and asked her about that issue, and she was very upfront. She said, we're probably not doing enough, we've got to do more. And I think, but the idea that when somebody admits they want to do more, that's a good road to go down. So,
and then you mentioned also, they need places to go. And I think I read recently where Dover just opened up a facility with 36 beds. I know Rochester had prior to this, early on this year. And so that is what's needed also, right? A place for them to go.
Right. In Manchester, there's a group of businessmen that are basically self-funding this thing to get this huge building that was vacant up and running to a sort of a recovery type center. But let's take Grafton County, for instance. We got 90,000 people that live in the county. We have, depending on how you count them, let's say 10 beds over here at Headrest, and up at the Friendship House in Bethlehem, I think there's probably another 30 beds. So that's 40 beds in a population of 90,000 people. Coas County, I don't believe, has any beds,
Wow.
and I'm not sure of Carroll County. So, I mean, you've got 10% of the, better than 10% of the population of the state, you got 40 beds, woefully under
Really?
utilized.
Yeah.
The trouble is, a lot of times, it's the funding. You know, it's, everybody wants to do more, but when you say, well, we gotta put the money up, in the state I think has been neglectful in not putting enough money to, not just this issue, but, you know, having been at Headrest for 10 years, I realize that there's a huge demand, and there's a window of opportunity. When that window's open, you've got to be able to take advantage, because when the window closes, sometimes you call that person back and they're not there. And sometimes the outcome is not great. So you asked me to come here and talk about drug.
Well, do you think of the same subject though, before we go there? With Governor Hassan bringing back the legislature, do you think there's gonna be anything that comes out of that? I know there's some legislation that they came up with, and put some money toward it, I guess.
Well, and thanks for leading me down that path, because that was part of the reason I came and spoke before the task force about the drug courts, because they want to put money out for that. It was my understanding that had been fast-tracked, and yet now when I look at the list of the items that are going to be fast-tracked, it is not one of those, because it costs money. And we've got to figure out a way to move some of these things forward. I would encourage any of your listeners that are listening to this, when they know the legislator in the area, whether it's in Lebanon, Hanover, Enfield, Canaan, wherever you are in New Hampshire, if you see that, pick up the phone and call and say, this is a program that it works. We've got to figure out a way, because it does a variety of things. One, the people that are dealt with in the drug court are going to go and live in either the county House of Corrections or the state prison. And if we can turn some of those around, we've had a good success rate. We were very fortunate a number of years ago to have a guy named Bob Gasser. Now, Bob had moved to the area, and Bill Solomon, who's a local businessman, said to Ray Burton and I, you should meet with this guy, Bob Gasser, because Bob had done this program called Drug Court. Well, we had no idea what Drug Court is, and I would say probably at that moment, most people in the state of New Hampshire had no idea what Drug Court was. They had one down in Stratford County. We talked to Bob, we saw his enthusiasm and everything. We got a drug court up and running.
This was when now?
That was probably 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh, that long ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a drug court up and running. And I remember I was on the New England Drug Court Board, and I got asked to go to speak to at the conference for New Hampshire. So I stood up and I said, the good news is, there's good news and bad news. The good news is we just doubled the number of drug courts in the state of New Hampshire from 1 to 2. The bad news is there's still 8 counties that don't have them. Now there's been a number of counties that have come on board, but Coas County does not have one and Carroll County does not have one. And as part of that, on January 11th at Grafton County, I'm hosting Coas, Carroll. I've invited Sullivan. Someone from Cheshire is coming. I believe possibly the Chief Justice of the Superior Court, because the judges play a huge role in this. Hopefully they're all coming, so they can get to what they know about drug court is probably very little. They can heighten their awareness of drug court, but it takes a little more than just say we want to start a drug court. You have to have a team effort to put it together. So anyways, having said all that, the goal is to get them up to Grafton County, talk about it, and hopefully either collaboratively, maybe working, thinking outside the boxes, because so often Grafton County does what just Grafton County does, and Coas does what just Coas. But we take the women from Coas County in our county House of Correction.
I see.
They do not house in Coas, so they come down. So we have worked collaboratively together. Also, Stratford County has reached out to Carroll County and said maybe it's a possibility we can work together. Having said that, if we can get another drug court or 2 up and running, so we can use the money that the state's going to put out there, I think it hopefully will save lives, save money, and turn some people around from the direction they're going. The drug court, how it works, and I'll sort of give a thumbnail, and I don't do this on a daily basis, so I'm no expert, but I'll give you. So the person that pleads into the drug court is going to go someplace. They're either going to go to the House of Correction or the state prison.
So, I'm sorry, so they're in the municipal court first?
They're in the Superior Court up in Grafton
So
County.
if they,
So this is a felony level.
okay,
Yeah.
there we go, felony
Yeah.
level, okay,
So-
so they're not local, they would not go to a local
This is
municipal.
this is not a misdemeanor. These are
Felonies,
yeah.
okay. And
So-
felony would be possession of so much drugs or
some
intent
could
to
be
sell.
stealing, or I mean, there's a whole bunch of
Okay.
different things that could be there. And probably if you need exact one, you'd have to ask a judge.
Yeah,
to
but
or
it's
an
at that
attorney
level.
or an attorney that deals with criminal cases. So they would be heading in that direction. But through a plea agreement or working with their attorney, and many of them come from the public defender role, because the public defender does a lot of this work with us. They would come into drug court with the idea that they would enroll in what is considered a very difficult program. It's demanding. They have to go to a lot of meetings. They have to stay clean and sober. They have to get a job. They're subject to random drug testing. They are sort of watched over very closely by supervision, which is, in our case, Grafton County runs it from the House of Correction, has a supervision team that goes out and checks on them. And so that's how it's done. And if they don't do something, or if they violate something, they can have either a sanction, which might be a weekend in jail, they might be doing some community service, or the second or third time, it might be a week or a month in jail. You try not to knock them out of the program, because you got to realize what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people that are addicted. So you've got to work with them. So it's not, well, you violated once, you're out. So that's the goal, is to work with them. After they've gone through the first series, which is the most difficult, they move from level to level. And eventually, as they move from level to level, it gets easy. They don't have as many meetings to go to. They don't have as many supervision visits, all of these kind of things. But they're still required to stay clean and sober, and they should be doing better in their lives. I often say at the graduations, you are two things. One, you're an ambassador of the program because you've graduated, but you're also a better role model, because many of them come with children, and unfortunately, when you go to jail, you stay away from your kids. If you can go through this program, be a success, do all the things you're supposed to do, you can spend more time with them. So you're a better role model. We just had a holiday party at the county, and I'll put a little plug in for the Marine Corps Toys for Tots. They do a great job. They supply toys for the children in the program.
Oh.
And then, very creatively, Grafton County has a Friends of Grafton County, which has now been morphed into Friends of all the drug courts in New Hampshire. But each one is targeted for the county they serve. But the Friends of Grafton County buys a gift card for each and every one of the participants. So they go to a store wherever they're given, and they can get $25, $30, $40, $50, whatever the card is worth, and they can get themselves. The nice thing is, first of all, Santa Claus comes and visits, so it's wonderful for the children, and then they get all excited and stuff like that. And I cannot say enough for the Toys for Tots program, what they do to help these children, not only in this program, but so many others. I remember when I was at EdRest, some of our clients would come in and they would actually get presents so we could give the clients kids presents and stuff like
We
that.
had Rick Maynard last week on the program
Yeah.
from Toys for Tots.
Yeah, he's a great
And
guy.
and spoke about the program,
Yeah.
and he didn't mention the court, and that's
Well, they probably do so many things.
They do,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's interesting that you mentioned, some of these people are family men or women, and there's kids involved,
Yeah.
so it's important for them to, so the judge rules, okay, you're, because they go in front of the judge.
Well, that's one of the important components of this.
Okay.
Is that they go to a meeting on a weekly basis in which the judge presides over this meeting. But it's a little different. The judge sometimes, I remember talking to Tim Vaughn once, and Tim was saying that he had heard that one of the guys had a 2-year-old, and he carried a picture in his wallet of his 2-year-old. Tim called him up front and said, "Geez, how you doing this week? I heard you have a picture of your son." Pulled it out. I mean, it was a different. I mean, it's for you and I. It might sound like, what's the big deal? But for them, it's been, for the people that are participating, a lot of times it's been such a huge barrier. First of all, they view that judge way up here,
Yes,
and they're
yes.
way down here.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it doesn't, the barriers, and I don't want to get in trouble with any of the judges, but the judge comes down a little and the client goes up a little,
Yeah.
and it helps them develop a relationship that they know that people want them to succeed. At their graduation, if they stay clean and sober and do all the things under the current program that they're supposed to do, after about a year and a half, comes off their record. Now that's a huge thing to have happen, to have that felony come off your record, because as you know, felonies can
Oh, sure.
prohibit you from doing a
Oh,
variety
yes.
of things in
Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
You know, you're going for a job or anything, and so it can be huge. Going into the service, it can make a big difference. Voting, you know, I mean,
Oh,
all
sure,
of
sure.
these things.
Yeah. How long is the program?
Typically, it lasts somewhere between 18 months and 2 years.
Okay, and then at the end, we'll say 2 years, that's when the graduation.
Yeah.
How many have you graduated so far?
I think we have something like, I'm going to guess, something like 60 graduates.
Oh.
And very few of them have come back into
I
the
was gonna
jail.
ask the rescission
Yeah,
rate. Okay.
recidivism has been phenomenal. But it also proves that it's not just this program, but a variety of other programs that we have at the county. And I'll just digress a second away from this specific issue. Whether it's, we have a program that's called Crossroads, which deals with decision makings. It takes people from who used to make a decision on the spur of the moment to think about it and not react, but process it. And that's helped. We have a number of people that go get their GED, which is now called HiSET. We forever known it as GED.
GED, yeah.
Now it's HiSET, and,
Yeah.
and don't ask me what the initials stand for.
What the acronym is.
Yeah, so we have that program, but we have a variety of those programs. One of the programs that I think is the most interesting, we have a farm at Grafton County,
Right.
and we have a farm stand, and the inmates staff the farm stand. They collect the money, they deal with the people, they transact, they talk, and at the end, when their day's done, they go back into the House of Correction. We've had, and all the time, I think only 1 or 2 of the people that have worked in that program come back into jail. It's been that successful. You know, obviously they still have their orange outfit on. They carry on a transaction a lot of times. They carry out the stuff and put it in the person's car. But there's, I think, entrusting them with the money, giving them an opportunity to do something that deals with the public, realizing in a lot of cases, I've had talked to people, oh, I didn't even realize he was in jail. Or she was in jail. You know, it's that breaks down that barrier,
Yeah.
and it sort of it increases their self-esteem. So, anyways, to go back to the drug court. The drug court is a national program. Grafton County, when it first started, got a national award for the way it started because it incorporated a whole bunch of different people into it. It wasn't just let's get a judge involved and that's it. We had, you know, all people from private. We had also the county attorney plays a big role in that. We had the prosecutor and not the, excuse me, she's the prosecutor. We had the public defender. We've got treatment providers. We've got supervision. We've got somebody from the House of Correction. I mean, you can go down through all of these things. And like I said, that program that we started for Friends of the Drug Court, when I spoke at the New England Drug Court one year, a lady came up and she had done this program on one of the many television stations on different things that dealt with drugs. And she said, I've never heard of that program. And I said, well, you know, it's a wonderful program because in some cases, you get a flat tire and you need a tire. There's money sometimes to buy that. You've done a great job. There's money sometimes for a little bonus to, you know, maybe get a pizza or something. I mean, it does a lot of different things. I mean, it's not huge chunks of money, but it's chunks of money that when you have nothing, it helps you do a few of those things. So it's a great little program.
Does the economics affect the issue, you know, if the economy's down or up or whatever? Is there any correlation?
I don't think it's been hard getting people jobs. I mean,
Okay.
sometimes it might not be the job they would like.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But you know, I think we've had some employers that have been very helpful in getting jobs and helping people land on their feet. And you know, the nice thing about it is when you think about it, the people working there, not to say that somebody might stumble, they're being randomly drug tested, they're being supervised, they have to, you've got all those papers there, you have to fill out your schedule for the week. And it's not like, well, I'm gonna do this and I got this big blank spread. You gotta tell people where you're gonna be all the time. And so they're watched over very closely.
Yeah. Both men and women?
Both men and women.
In the program, okay.
Now, sometimes it's been the greater failure rate. Now, when you said that many come back,
Yeah,
sometimes the bigger failure rate is from the day they start to graduation. There's a lot of failures. Many women have failed in that. In fact, we invited a number of years ago a professor from Harvard and BU, Lisa Najibetz, to talk about, she wrote this thing called Seeking Safety, and it's about all the abuses that young women go through. And those scars that are left behind make it sometimes very difficult for them in life. It's the abuses are many, and they can scar them for life. So sometimes the failure rate has been greater on the women's side than the men's side. But it's heartwarming, Paul, to see someone succeed. It's heartwarming to see the reuniting of a family as a group versus mom's away or dad's away because they're serving on in some cases, you're looking 4 to 7 years.
yeah.
A 3-year-old.
And now they serve no time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, as long as they do everything they're supposed to do,
sure.
it can be.
Yeah.
Now, part of the issue now with the drug court is ratcheting it up. It used to be, we took some of the easier people.
Oh,
Now the new plan is to take some of the high risk, high need. And I think it'll be a little more demanding. I hope we never get away from taking anyone that wants to go in drug court, because it goes back to that window. If somebody said to me, I'd love to be in drug court, and I'm running drug court, I'd love to be in drug court, I don't want to go down this road that I've been going down any longer, I need you, I think we need to figure out a way to help that person. We can't just turn the back and say, oh, we can't take you because you're not bad enough, we got to take this person. Because with some of the stuff that's going on, it doesn't, heroin and fentanyl don't pick the rich and the poor, they don't pick the educated, well-educated, or not educated, got a job or don't have a job, good athlete in high school or nothing, they don't care. When you go down that road, it's, so I don't want to see us just pick and choose and say, we're only gonna pick the hard ones. I know it's the route they wanna go, but I just hope we don't give up on people.
are you maxed out at any point, or you can take as many?
We have room.
We
We have room, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
but one of the problems we have now is with some of the sentencing, some of the people are getting out a little earlier, and it's getting a little more difficult to get some people in there because they're looking at it and saying, those that don't want to go in, I can get out earlier than if I spend my time. I'd rather serve my time.
Yeah. So.
That's an issue.
That's an
It's
issue.
an issue. It's not a huge overriding issue, but it is an issue.
Yeah. Turning the page to another topic, you are county commissioner.
Right.
Been county commissioner for how many years?
I'm in my 10th term, so
10th
I'm
term,
starting
20,
my 19th
19
year.
years, almost as long as I've been here, yeah. And you're looking to go up another avenue,
Right.
and that is?
Run for the executive council. I ran in the past when Ray passed away. I ran for the seat and lost, and in the last election I lost by 1.5%.
Wow.
Out of about 100,000 votes, I lost by 1,400 votes. I'm starting to work, and I want to succeed this time. It's issues like this that have driven me. Senior issues, the drug epidemic. That one of the votes taken recently on turning down the judge who, because she had represented somebody that people think shouldn't be represented, their job is to do their job, and it's not to say you can't have any representation, and to be turned down because I thought was absolutely wrong. So because of that and many other things, I've lived my whole life in Grafton County, with the exception of going to college. I grew up in Littleton. I lived for a short while in Bethlehem, and for the last 33 years, I've been down here in Hanover. I just love northern New Hampshire. To me, it's just a great place to be. One of the big issues in the real northern New Hampshire, well, there's a couple, but is the Northern Pass. I've said all along, way back when some people were dead set against it, I said, I think what we have to do is figure out a way to bury the whole thing, because if we don't, it'll take the word scenic out of northern New Hampshire. And really, when you think about, in a lot of cases, that's what people come for, is the scenic beauty, whether it's snowmobiling or cross-country skiing or swimming or hiking or whatever they're doing. Speaking of skiing, I'm really concerned about the ski areas.
For the season, yes.
But also, just for people that might not know, the role of the executive council is, first of all, there are 5 executive councilors. The race that I'm running for is District Number 1. That runs from Pittsburgh all the way down to Claremont, over to Laconia, over to Rochester, not including Rochester, but over to Milton and Middleton and New Durham and Stratford County. But it's a major portion of the state. It's about 2/3 of the land distance. And
Ray used to fold the map of New Hampshire, and he says, "I have the top half."
yeah, well, it's a big district, and having traveled it all, I know how big it is. But it also is a special district. It's you come into the small towns, you know the people that are in the small towns. If you look at the Manchester district, it's about this big. And you look at this district, it's huge.
And it's based on population.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
20% of the population, but 2/3 of the land.
For the land mass.
So there's 108 towns and 4 cities. And so I'll be running. And if anyone has any questions, I certainly would encourage them to call me at 443-1901. That's in New Hampshire. They want to contact me by mail. They can send it P.O. Box 999, Hanover. 03755, or they can email me at mjcryans, that's CRYANS @hotmail.com. So you're right, and 2 of the councilors are giving up their
to run
seat.
for governor, so it might be a big change in the governor's council,
Colin-
and a new governor on top of
It's
that.
going to be a huge change. Colin Van Ostren is running
Yeah.
as a Democrat against Mark Conley in the primary, and Chris Sununu on the Republican side is running. I believe he has someone in. And I don't know I apologize, but I don't know the person's name running against him. And you never know. It's still a long time for filing is in June, so you might have somebody running that we know well by their names, but they haven't announced they're running. So that'll be the race. But there's 2 that'll will be changed right off the bat.
And hopefully 3.
I hope so. I hope so.
So when is the primary?
The primary would be in September.
September.
Yeah.
And the general in
November 8th.
November.
Yeah.
Okay. So
A funny story. I was in church, walking out of church because I hand out the bulletins after Mass, and the lady stopped me. She said, "I want to vote for you. When's the election?" I said, "Funny you ask. 1 year from today."
it
It was
was
just November 8th, which was a Sunday, and it was exactly 1 year from today. So it'll be a while, but time goes by.
Oh, it does. It does.
I'm looking at the young person doing the filming, and when you get to be our age, it's amazing how quick days go by.
It does.
In months.
In months. Very quick. Well, Michael, we thank you very much for being with us,
Well, thank
and I
you,
think it was
Paul.
very informative on the topic, and we wish you luck. That is another presentation of Points of Interest brought to you by the Lebanon Area Chamber of Commerce. This being our last show before the holiday season, on behalf of the officers and the staff and directors of the Lebanon Area Chamber of Commerce, we wish you a happy holiday season. And we'll be back next week with another program. Until then.